Better Living Interest channel. Today we have a special guest, Dominique. Thank you for joining us. She has worn many hats as a teacher, as a consultant, as a strategist, and now a capital expert. Can you walk us through your journey from the classroom to the capital strategy? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. And I'm fresh off a flight from Dallas to Memphis. So I am excited to be here and to be steady right now. It's a weird journey. It's a very weird journey. And I didn't realize probably until about 2 months ago that all of it made sense. So I went to school and graduated. I opened a catalog when I was in undergrad and I said, what doesn't take math? Because from fifth grade forward, math is not, that's not my space. I don't love it and it doesn't love me. Words and relationships I'm excellent at, right? So oddly enough, I wound up in this space, but I went to school, got a degree in Spanish, already spoke Spanish, but I got a degree in it. My parents are like, "Wow, that's lazy," and I said, "But if I was to get an English degree, you'd think I was a scholar." So there's that. Then it evolves, right? So it went to public relations. I wanted to do a PR firm, and I did. I ran a PR firm for a long time and started out in entertainment, nightlife, and lifestyle, wound up in crisis and multicultural communications, right? And so all of it is necessary. Now you go forward working at Vanderbilt, leading social innovation, social entrepreneurship. And part of that social innovation became the affordable housing in Nashville and how to innovate that. How can we, put some innovation and some of Vanderbilt's students behind this to make affordable housing happen in Nashville? Because we were at a really crucial point, still are. And that led me to the mayor's office, which led me to the housing fund, where I launched Nashville's, or was a part of a team that launched Nashville's first community land trust, and really fell in love with this work. I really got heavy and deep into Urban Land Institute, ULI. I owe a lot of my career to ULI because I was a speaker, co chair, and spoke in different sections and really fell down the rabbit hole in this space. 2020, January 2020, the budget no longer supported my role. It was thank you. And then I had to figure out what I was going to do. And I started consulting and I worked with a lot of developers, market rate developers who wanted to do affordable housing and affordable housing developers, emerging developers. And then fast forward to 2024, I was literally just in Memphis, minding my business, consulting, trying to save the world, and kept getting these emails that I kept ignoring. And it turned out it was for the Real Estate Council in Dallas, or TREC, the community investment side. And now I'm in Dallas, trying to fix the world.
Nice. So from Nashville, Tennessee, correct, to
Correct.
Dallas, Texas.
Nashville to
Still in the
Memphis to
South,
Dallas.
Nashville to Memphis to Dallas,
That's right.
all still within the southern eastern region.
Southeast, Southwest. I think Dallas, I think Texans will fight you if you say Southeast. They're definitely feel Southwestern. So,
Southwestern, got you, got you. Yeah, we want to make sure respect. I went to
sure.
Houston for the NARAP
Yes.
conference 2 years ago, and
Yeah.
I was just blown away at the work that Texas and Houston is doing, especially for the black and brown developers. So,
Yes.
much respect. I tip my big Yankee cowboy hat to Texas for
That's
the work
right.
that they got going on. So yeah, no, this is great. So you spoke about your traveling, you spoke about the ULI as well. For those that may not be aware, could you give a little bit more information about what the ULI is and how that could be a
Mhm.
benefit for somebody who is going into the real estate industry, whether it be an architect, entrepreneur, investor, developer?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The connections in the network are unparalleled, right? And it is a global organization and, global. And so when people say that, they kind of don't really mean it, but it literally, there are organizations, there are chapters in Japan, there are chapters, they have a whole Middle Eastern section. So you can create relationships. Like I'm personally working right now to develop some space in the Middle East, in Dubai and Oman and Abu Dhabi, right? And so there are literally people there that you can reach out to and start having these conversations because you have like-minded opportunities, right? And things that you're thinking through. And so if you are starting in this space, join, if there's a pathways to inclusion program, which is the diversity focused program to get more diverse individuals into the space and into the built environment world, join it, lean in, volunteer, speak, give your time and talents, and it'll definitely, come back to you threefold.
Wow. I didn't even realize that because I know that there's a ULI chapter here in Buffalo, New York.
Uh-huh.
I know they have a big presence in New York City, but I didn't realize that it was global. I thought it was only national, but that's good to
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
definitely. And so Trek, the Real Estate Council is very much, it's a force. It's a powerful force. So roughly 95% of all commercial real estate that happens in Dallas is from Trek members. Right. And
Mm.
so I again didn't have a scope of reference on Trek until I started working there. And even when I started working there, I didn't realize what a big deal it was. And then I got there and was like, oh, okay. This is a big, big deal. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's another good one too. So definitely for the viewers out there, make sure that you're checking out Trek and ULI, see how that could be a benefit for you. You know, real estate is deals, it's relationships. So you gotta get those
Yep.
some way to have a basis of a relationship to stand on. So that's a good way to open that door. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
I have a follow-up question for you. How did your early experiences in education and PR shape how you approach mission-driven work and community development today?
I tell everyone that there are two things that I do with excellence: words and relationships. That's everything else can be learned, and everything else was learned, and you can fill in the holes. Education, if you really mean to do it, I come from a mother who was a educator for 37 years. My sister's an educator, right? My grandmother was a teaching nursing person, right? And so education, either you have a compassionate heart or you don't, and we see a lot who don't. But I always tell people that I was a teacher because I loved the kids and the camaraderie of the classroom. The rest of it I could do without, right? So I enjoyed the young people and those aha moments. And that's the same thing that comes with community work, right? Those aha moments. And then public relations, for the work that I did, it's always been about community. It's always been people first. And so whether that's entertainment, nightlife, and lifestyle, where you make sure that people are having a good time, and if something goes awry, then I'm able to tell the correct story for the client. To multicultural communications, which is people first, because I want to make sure that everybody gets the same access to knowledge and information in their language as possible. And then crisis communications is definitely about, fixing what's broken, and I think affordable housing is a great place to have that skill.
Mm, powerful. And you often talk about capital storytelling.
Yes.
How do you use this narrative as a tool to attract investment and ensure community alignment in these real estate development projects?
Sure. So it took me a long time to figure out my space and place in this world. There's a lot of things that I can do that, so I did, right? But it took me years to figure out that my space, I don't have to do the pro formas and all those things. I need to be able to understand them because I'm such a big heart, and I want to fix everything, and I want everybody to have the money they need to do all the things. But the one thing that I realized when I worked on the community side and the nonprofit side, a lot of individuals in that side are going to tell the story of the sadness and the why and the hurt and the pain and the need. But the people who write the checks want to hear, how does that match up to the money that we're giving? How are you telling that story? How are we going to give you money and get the impact? Sometimes it's absolutely from their heart, and sometimes it's for things like, CRA credits, right? And so we want to make sure, Community Reinvestment Act. So we need to be able to tell the right story, whatever their motive is to put money into this project. We need to be able to tell the right story. So that's the intersection I live in between capital and community, and being able to tell that story. My PR skills, they come into handy really well, right? And to be able to articulate the numbers. So somebody else needs to build that pro forma for me. Can I do it? Yes. Do I want to do it? No. Build that pro forma. Let me tell the story of how we got to this number, why we need that number. and how many people it's going to help and the biggest long-term impact.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense. It really makes sense, right? I have an MPA, so my field of study was very much a qualitative quantitative approach where we
Mm-hmm.
would take, the quantitative data, the numbers, and then we would mix in, what's the narrative? What is the
Yep.
program's numbers telling us of how the people are impacted by these programs? And to
Yep.
your point, when it comes to real estate development, yeah, you can have the performer, which are the numbers, it could provide X amount of housing, it could cost X amount of dollars. However, what's the impact for that community? And I think that that oftentimes gets overlooked because we are in the real estate industry, which is very much business focused,
Mm-hmm.
dollar focused,
Yep.
bottom line driven.
Right.
At the same time, though, there's people that are living in there, right? So there is a human element to it that
That's
we
right.
can't overlook, and being able to do that part, I think, is really what helps a development project overcome obstacles like community input
Right.
or city and environmentalists coming at it. So yeah,
Right.
that's great insight. You're a powerful person to be on the team.
Say it louder. That's right.
Yes, yes. So in neighborhoods facing disinvestment,
Yep.
gentrification, how do you structure deals that both satisfy investors and center
Mm-hmm.
community priorities?
I worked on a project in Nashville in a community called Wedgwood, Houston, right? And so Wedgwood, Houston is a historic community, but it has shifted. It has shifted so much. And so the individuals that I was working with, the community side, was vastly different than maybe the community I knew growing up, but they very much wanted to lay on top of their history. So, one, I had to level set for everybody in the room when we held a community meeting. Let's be very clear and very honest. What you're protecting as far as community and history really isn't yours, and you've already shifted the narrative. So let's pay respect to the narrative that you've shifted. Now, what you really want is for developers to come in your community and treat it with respect and not just white box everything and make everything look the same. So let's start from there, right? And so, when we're in communities like North Nashville or Orange Mound or Mill City in Dallas, the people are the first leg of the conversation. We need to listen twice as much as we speak and get the full sense of the community. So if that's not your space, if you're a developer and all you care about is how many units am I putting up, how much it's going to cost me, and what's the return, then you probably should either send somebody from your team or you should come and maybe open your heart like the Grinch 3 times that day, right? But the way that we build these projects is one, we start with community, and then two, we look at maybe a little bit different of a capital stack. Maybe I'm not winning all the friends every time that I say LIHTC may not be your best tool if you're building affordable housing because it's time intensive. You may or may not get it. You're going to spend a ton of money in hopes of, and don't even start if you're trying to get 4% LIHTC, right? And so looking at other tools, we have to figure out how do we play well with others? How do we build the stack of, impact investors, some good equity, a little bit of smart debt that's a quicker debt, right? And how do we make friends with CDFIs and maybe do some participation loans, things like that, looking at the holistic opportunity so that we can pencil it out and it can make sense. And then also having a real conversation with market rate developers or maybe emerging developers who come in with much more of a market rate mindset that you're not going to it may not pencil out the same as a market rate deal, but if your end goal to do better in a community, leave it better than you found it, or is it to just make money because you may be in the wrong space?
Yeah, no, that's true. It definitely requires a lot of strategy. You would think, oh, okay, I could just get a loan. I think for those that may not know, commercial requires so many different parts. You have your, soft costs, and then you have your hard costs, right? And then
Right.
even within those two dynamics, you still have phases within each one of those, and you're going to need capital to pay for those things, and not
Right.
every lending source or lending provider provides capital for each of those sources, for excuse me, for each of those factors, right?
Right.
So I agree that finding creative ways to put that together is really what's going to help a project move from an idea conception, paper conception, to now being implemented. So
Yeah, for
definitely
sure.
this is great knowledge to for the people to learn. You also, in my research, you helped launch Nashville's first community land trust. What were
Yes.
some unexpected challenges or wins, and what should other cities learn from it?
This is so I've my third land trust project, right, in Dallas. And from Nashville, I think what we learned was have the concept and community space filled first, as opposed to if you go into it with a banker's mindset, it may not come out as a community land trust, and it may wind up what it is now, what Nashville's is now, which is shared equity, a shared equity model, which takes the community out of it really. Because if you don't start with community in mind and you don't have a space and good maybe community partners, then what you wind up thinking about and focusing on nonstop is land acquisition. And then if you get land that's cloudy titles, junky titles, now you spent, 70, $80,000 clearing titles. And now you're thinking about subsidies and filling gaps and building the first house and making those partnerships, but you're so far away from the community aspect. So that's the piece that I learned is community first early and often, and center and root this in that so that it is a community land trust and not just a shared equity model.
And in that, breaking ground to do a community land trust,
Mm-hmm.
how were you able to navigate the different parties, right? So
Mm-hmm.
Don Peoples is like he's my unofficial mentor. He doesn't know it
Yes,
yet,
same. Yes, same. Yes,
but
absolutely.
Donahue Peoples, if you don't know him, he is the top of the top,
The
biggest
goat.
African American real estate developer in the country, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
he has this saying that like when he said it, I was already in the process of doing real estate development, and
Mm-hmm.
it just summed it up perfectly for me because I was getting so frustrated. But he says real estate development is the crossroads between politics and economics. It's like where it meets.
Yep,
And
yep.
I really felt that. And it's like, okay, well, you got the obstacles and hurdles of getting the funding sources, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're a private entity or a not for profit entity.
Yep.
Then you still have to deal with the political aspects of it too, right? So now you're dealing
Yes.
with elected officials,
Yes.
community, groups, community activist groups and members and neighborhood block clubs, etc.
Yep.
And then you have, the other businesses that are in the area as well. So you got those
Yep.
three groups. Just like, how did you navigate that to create these land trusts?
And one of the things that we did early was really a lot of meetings. There was a lot. And so when I walked into the Nashville CLT, there was groundwork that had been laid, right? And so I got to come in and do the relationship building and putting those pieces together in strategic partnerships. And so that was a lot of counsel, a lot of politics, a lot of policy, right? And so on my report card, I tell people I always got plays well with others. So that works out for me. And I do well in that space, right? One of the things when I was in Memphis on that CLT, the Binghamton Community Land Trust, they had already kind of started. They were trying to build a house. One of the things that I realized early on is they didn't have a taste for debt. And so often in this space, what you find is people who want, I just want a lot of grant money and I want to do it this way. So coming to Dallas, launching Dallas's first community land trust, I was able to sit and say, and to be at a space like Trek, where we have a CDFI that does, and we're very much real estate, commercial real estate, with the opportunity to do residential. We offer pre-development loans, pre-development capital, land acquisition capital, bridge capital and construction capital. So, being able to say, hey, listen, we want to stand this up was also smart to have 7 community partners that were all nonprofits that do all the things. So what they're going to bring are A, buyers, and B, some of them had property and some of them are developers, right? And so we kind of put a dream team together on our founding board. Works out. And that there's going to be a taste for debt. You know that there's going to be some properties that you can already acquire, and there's the community aspect that's already there. So it's been a step. I think each time I get a little closer to the dream with these
Nice,
CLTs.
nice. So it definitely works out because you take it in phases. You're not trying to
That's right.
essentially eat the whole pie. You're trying to take it as a slice.
That's right. And each slice is somebody different. So the politicians want their voice, the community wants their voice. It's absolutely each piece. And a couple things about Dallas that I really love. I love, number one, that there's a lot of land. So
Mm,
there's always a chance to get it right. Right? There's been ample opportunity to get it, I won't say wrong, but expensive, right? Clearly.
mm,
But we
yeah,
have a lot of opportunity left to kind of get it right.
that's good. And
Yeah.
and I'm guessing also too, they're really supportive and they're welcoming of development and projects to come along.
Vastly welcoming, and it's really making the affordable, CLT, that the CLT conversation is a lot. What helped was that Fort Worth also launched a CLT, around the same time. So got a big kind of two heads are better than one situation happening down there.
Yeah, I've been to that airport one time, and they told me like, "Oh man, you're at the Dallas Fort Worth. It's like the middle. It's like two
That's right.
cities." And I
Yeah.
was like, "What? Two cities?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, it's so big." And then
It
like, "Yeah,
is.
man, it's just growing. It's just growing." So I'm like, "All right, keep a mental note. Like, definitely need to look into
Yes.
Dallas Fort Worth to do some potential deals."
And we'll get you some money from Trek.
Speaking of, which I appreciate you mentioning that as we transition, at Trek, you
Yep.
combine loans, equity equivalent investments, and technical support. Can you share an example
Yep.
where this mix truly made a difference in a development project?
Absolutely. So one of the things that Trek has really become known for are the Dallas Catalyst projects, right? And so by mission, Trek community investors. So keep in mind that there's the real estate council and then the real estate council community investors. I lead the Trek CI side, right? Which is the community investors. I like to say that we're just our money making hippie side, right? Like me. So I think we have been able to put money into projects. So the Dallas Catalyst project, there was a 1.0, which was in the Forest District. And if you go look up the Forest District, that's a huge project, right? And we were a part of that. And there's a lot of capital that went into that. So there was some debt in, building projects. There was some equity in the building projects. There was grant money that went through the Catalyst project, and so through over the time, like the 2.0 was $1 million over 3 years to infuse into Mill City. So after the Forest District, that was 1.0. 2.0 is Mill City. So there's been money that's gone into projects. There have been loans that have gone out, right? There's debt capital. There's been some equity capital. There have been grants that go to each of the partners in the Dallas Catalyst Project 2.0. So building boxing gyms and gardens and housing. There's just a good mixture of things that's happening. And then there's some other projects that we're looking at are catalytic opportunities. And so and then there's been a lot of good pieces of it. And then on top of that, what the magic of Trek is technical assistance, right? So there's a consulting piece where the members of Trek give their time and talents. And so if you need, if you're a nonprofit and you need something from Trek, like, okay, we need an attorney to look at a contract. You're not going to get them to do all the free things, but you can get a lot of pro bono work. And, we have to scale that out. But you can definitely get a lot of pro bono work that you may not otherwise get as technical assistance.
Wow. And can they layer those benefits with other programs that they may be afforded as well? I'm
Yes,
thinking
yeah,
like REAP or like NARAB, they may have a development program and they're willing to throw some money at a project, could they layer it?
We'd love that. I love to see projects walk in the door and have a capital stack that looks like that. I like to see, if they've got a lot of partners at the table and it's a lot of equity capital, that's great, right? But I also spend a lot of time, like we just did our seventh boot camp, and there are 35 individuals in there, and they heard from me every time I open my mouth, come get our money, borrow some money, because until you have a taste for debt, your project's slower, right? And if you're trying to get all grants and all free technical assistance, your project's going to go so much slower. And if you want to be competitive, you have to take a little bit, even if it's just pre-development capital or something, but you need to get a little bit of taste for debt. Be okay, have an appetite for it.
And usually, what are like the debt thresholds, or I know in and what I've seen in my experience, they usually want you to have like a equity down payment of not for profits. I've seen 3%, and then for profit, I've seen 10%.
Yeah,
Is that about the same for you
about the same.
projects?
Yeah, yeah. And so Trek, our ceiling really is 750 on projects, and we like you to have a little skin in the game. So that 3%, 3 and 10%, that's about right. Can do 1 million in a project with committee approval on a really great project. But come to the table with some assets, have a good picture, have a good team, have a great story, and have a great way to pay that money back when you get it. So you have a good return.
Oh yeah, definitely. You want to make sure that it's happening. And you also alluded to the projects could be like a boxing gym. You said a community garden.
Hmm.
So what kind, like, are there any specific restrictions for those, for any type of project that you've seen
Well,
or
so
requirement?
some of the capital for us, for example, at Trek is the Mill City. We have grant money that's Mill City specific. Mill City is a historically black community in South Dallas. And then there's our other lending capital. Right now, the CDFI only lends in Dallas and Collin counties. But as we're going through this recertification, our CDFI recertification, once we're done with that and that's approved, then we'll be wide open, which will be even better.
Nice, nice. Love that.
Yeah.
Definitely, this is going to be great for the viewers and for people that are out there in the Dallas market area that are always looking for, ways to get some institutional money to help their project. So, for individuals, let's say like right now, I mean, I'm going through my CCIM studies.
Hmm.
I've just completed my 103.
All right.
Um, I, so I remember when I took my 102, which was only but last year, November, we had
Hmm.
to study the different cycles of commercial real estate, right?
Sure.
And each industry. And I remember when we was researching and studying, my instructor just so happened to be from Dallas, Texas. So we're
Nice.
studying Dallas and that whole southwest, southeast. I don't want to get
Yeah.
nobody offended region, but it was just growing, right? So it's like
Yeah.
Atlanta, the
Yep.
state of Georgia, Florida, everything was just going down in there, Texas, and it's just growing and growing and everything is going up. For maybe a specific, let's say office. I know nationally office has been taking some hits.
Yes.
Again, real estate is always local, but
Yes.
for a person that's investing in a market in Dallas
Hmm.
and their sector happens to be in a downturn, uh,
Hmm.
how does someone create opportunity in a downturn market down there? And what should an emerging developer and not-for-profit be doing to prepare to take advantage of those opportunities, those slower markets?
Yep, absolutely. And as much as there's opportunity in commercial, I will absolutely tell you that to look in residential as well, because
Hmm.
I think that this is the time. Even if you buy a building right now in commercial, if you have a heart for service and if you want to do a mission-driven project, then this is the time to ideate, buy that building when it dips, buy it for the low, build out your holding cost, and spend that time really focusing on, if it's mission driven, what's the focus, get to know that community. If it's a community where you're from, what's the need, build out that story, build out that stack, start making those relationships, talking to everybody, get yourself strong, make sure you're bankable, right? And make sure if you have a team that they're bankable, that if there's six people on your team, then can all six be guarantors? That'd be great, right? But that may not, it's not realistic all the time, but at least you are bankable and you can do the projects. And then, get to know your capital that's not just a straight bank. Get to know your CDFIs and your funds and your foundations and the other capital out there and start playing well with them as well. On the residential side, when it dips, investors from overseas and everywhere else are coming to buy up the block. You buy the block with a heart for your community and then figure out how to build. You may not build, you know, 700 houses. But one of the most beautiful things just happened was passed in Dallas. In Dallas proper, you can now, instead of doing a fourplex or, 4 units, you can now do 8 as residential. Groundbreaking. Groundbreaking. So that means that gives you an opportunity to get in on the ground floor and do 8 units. And you can do that under residential, which means the codes are so much easier. Everything moves smoother and different, right? So you're now competitive. So at a time when it dips, and especially in a disinvested community, when you can get those, you can get lots, you can get land, you can get buildings, you can get houses for considerably less. This make that your time, and then use this time to then figure out how to do a community improving project.
Wow, I love that. That's music to my ears.
Come on down, come on down.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, man. You all are just so hospitable and
Yep,
welcoming, so that you guys are living in abundance, so that's a good sign, right?
that's
Because
right.
if people are hoarding things, they're like, no, it's a bad place, don't come. But you guys are like,
Right.
no, there's plenty. So I like that. And then also too, you said 8 units. So I know at Houston when I was there going on 3 years ago now, but
Hmm.
they had just implemented this ordinance where now you can start building vertically. Is that the same in Dallas Fort
Hmm.
Worth, Texas too?
Yeah, definitely. You can do that. That's been happening. Houston is a magical, scary land to me where there's just no zoning in a lot of places. So you can
Yeah.
literally put like a funeral home next to a school, next to a house, and something else. It's just insane. Although, as a community minded person, that says to me that you have the opportunity to start somewhere without a lot of the red tape and without the headache of zoning, because that we all know that zoning is one of the slowdowns in a lot of our projects.
Yes, and you better make sure you have good consultants, or you better be consulting yourself
That's
how
right.
to navigate zoning, because it could get
That's
very
right.
tricky.
You know,
It always scratches my head when people get into a project and they didn't do their due diligence on what the zone was. That's scary.
yes, yes. Then they're like, "Oh, I can't build this, and I've spent all this money." What? First of all, why are you spending your money? Number one, when there's CDFIs who have money to give you for pre-development. I cannot say that enough. If you can get somebody else's money, go get it. But it is wild to me that people come with all these ideas, and if they don't know where to look, that's okay, right? And if they come to me, if they call my office, if they call me, my 9 to 5, as I say, is Trek, and my 5 to 9 is my consulting work, right? And so it's interesting when people have these ideas, and I'm like, well, here's the zoning policy. Go tick through there, and then come back and let's talk about what you found.
Yeah, no, that's great advice, right? Use other
Right.
people's money to do the work. There's money out there available for you to do the work and make the dreams that you envision come to fruition. So you definitely
That's
want to
right.
capitalize on that. And also too, your job is your biggest investor. So
That's right.
take that money, take if you happen to be in a job that actually aligns with what you want to do as an entrepreneur, then even
Yeah.
better because it's gonna help further build those relationships for you. But yeah, there's no sleep when you out here grinding and getting it.
There's not. It's always on.
It's always on. So speaking of it being always on, speaking about
Hmm.
success and successful projects, what can you share would be the secret in replicating a catalyst housing development project across multiple neighborhoods without losing the local soul?
Talking to the people first. What do they want? It's a dance between what do you want and what do you need. I worked with a project once where a developer said, "Oh God, they just want everything," and I'm always like, "Yeah, sure." You kind of sort of start to villainize the developer immediately in your head, even though you don't. I don't feel like that, but I go, "Well, maybe you're just not talking to them right." Well, it turns out they wanted a swimming pool, like a community pool, and I was like, "Okay, well, maybe not that. Let's work on making sure the houses are, good, solid, strong homes. Let's also make sure that the character of the community is kept. I think a community pool may not be the thing, right? And so you have to be realistic in some spaces, and sometimes maybe you can pull one off. Like that would be awesome. But it's community first. What's the value system there? What is the opportunity for continuity of the community character? And then how are you building your capital? All money's not good money, but you want to make sure that you're going after the good money to build that stack, and then you're finding the partners who are going to help. Now, one time in my work, I would have said, making sure things like your relationship with the housing authority for vouchers, but now, you know, I don't know that that's still around. So
Yeah.
we're in a weird time where that's things that are necessary are not there.
Yeah, and then unfortunately in Republican led states, it makes it
Yeah,
even more difficult because
that's
now
right.
you don't have that, support from your national and also at the state level. And, other things can be said too, when you have a
Sure.
democratic state and a democratic national, as a developer, it's like, oh man, I'm getting boxed into only doing specific projects
That's right.
in a specific way, and if I go above it to increase the return on investment, especially for
Yep.
my investors, now I'm
Yep.
getting penalized, or this project can't come to fruition. So it's almost like
Right.
it never wins. you
That's
i,
right.
I feel I feel like you gotta I don't want to be political here, but you know developers, I think, actually benefit when you have one party at the state level and one party at the national level, right? It
Absolutely.
doesn't matter if it's Republican or Democrat, but when you have
That's right.
both, you kind of get the best of both worlds.
That's right. Yeah, I've found that in Dallas, and we have a good idea what Texas, looks like, but I've found that maybe often whatever the politics is, whatever their, side of the fence is, when we can come together on an issue or a need or an improving a community, it almost goes away, right? Or it doesn't go away, but you can navigate it a little differently.
Hmm, that's good. Yeah, that's the navigation. That crossroads. It's
That's it.
gonna be a common theme for anybody that's going through this. You will see it. Trust me.
Yeah. Play well with others. Play well with others. Yes.
Yes, and stand, and to your point, right? Stand on your mission, right?
That's right.
Stand on what your goal is, what's your why, and listen to the community. So speaking of, I would like to ask you,
Mhm.
someone that's starting out fresh, maybe they just got out of college or they didn't even
Mhm.
go to college, they didn't go to school. They're just an individual who really
Sure.
is passionate about their community and wants to start
Mhm.
doing some development projects because they see either the abandoned houses in their neighborhoods or vacant land in their neighborhood, and they're like, I
Mhm.
want to develop this, I want to make this better. What
Yeah.
advice would you give that person who is watching this video right now? What advice would you give them starting out in real estate development?
Not to sound like Sherman Clump, but start with yes I can, right? Yes I can, right? So that's where you have to start. I literally just had this conversation. I just did a panel and I said the same thing. There's, well, how do you start? You start with getting up, putting your both feet on the floor in the morning and deciding to walk forward. And so once you realize, once you decide this is what I'm going to do, oh, I see this stretch of land over here looks really bad, that lot. Let me go find out who owns that lot. Oh, the city owns that lot and they'll sell it to me. Okay, but are there restrictions? Do I have to build a house on it? Do I, what are the terms? Take the time to follow that whole process, write that down, and then don't have planning paralysis. Right? Start with, I'm going to do this. This is what I do. Then I'm going to go find me, if it's land or it's houses. A great place to start is if flipping houses. If you want to flip some houses and make them affordable housing through the process, that's really great. I think that's a great idea. That's a great way to start. Put some money in the box and then decide, okay, I'm going to go buy some land. And then with that land, I'm going to maybe build from the ground up. Or because right now you can buy buildings for 8 buildings, right? And eight plexes, 4 plexes, buy you some buildings and put some people in them. So now you have multiple income. So there's a lot of ways. I think the best way to start is to start and then gain the knowledge, join the groups, be a voracious reader, and map your plan and understand that everybody else's plan doesn't necessarily have to be your plan. Like I'm not a huge developer, right? I haven't built 700 buildings, but I've been in a lot of projects. So I eat differently, right? And so
Hmm.
that's a way to do it as well. And to have the passion for this space. And then just like some of our partners down in Mill City in Dallas or that we had in North Nashville, if they said, okay, we know that this community needs this type of building, whether it's a commercial space or residential housing, then decide why not me and then walk that path to do that. In addition to all the feel good things, make sure you're bankable. Look at your credit, look at your debt, look at your income, look at your partners. And also, if you're the smartest one in your room, it's not just a fake saying, it's a real thing. If you're the smartest one in your group, you're in the wrong group. Go find people smarter than you that do this work, that have done this work, that know what's happening, and learn from them.
That's a gem right there. That's a way to really, I think, to sum it up for somebody starting out for sure. And I think even when you are doing this work, you still kind of have to constantly go through that process of finding yourself in new rooms
Yes.
and starting off at a level that's manageable. And I think that
Yes.
I've encountered that myself where you have to be able to bite things that you can chew, and digest,
That's
and then
right.
take the time to digest that so that way you can become better. And then when you go for your next, project, you have a strategy in place that you can achieve that. Everything's about efficiency. So, yeah,
That's right.
I appreciate it. This is great. This is amazing. Thank you. No, for sure. So I like to do rapid fire questions in my interviews with people just to
Sure.
kind of make it light, insightful, and fun for
Yeah.
everyone.
Let's
So
go.
I'm gonna start with some rapid fire questions. Really don't want you
Okay.
to think too much to it. It's just first thing that comes to mind, okay?
Awesome.
Cool. All right. So the first one is, what's one book that's changed your approach to community building?
Ooh, Don Peoples' book, and I can't think of the name. He has a couple. What is his book? Because you mentioned him. And then another one is, oh, why can't I think of any of my books? Oh no, I'm going dead.
No problem.
I'll think of the book. I'll send it to you.
Okay, okay. Well, Don Peoples and the another author. Okay, so we'll put
The
that in there.
redlining book. What is his name? I'm looking at my bookshelf because it's right there,
Yeah,
but
go
that's okay.
ahead.
No, it's
Okay.
okay. Go ahead.
Equity or grants? Which one's harder to pitch?
Equity.
Equity. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Uh,
because, yeah, yeah.
what's your go-to unwind song after a tough week?
Oh, probably something Glorilla or Meg the Stallion. If I'm in Dallas, it's almost always going to be Glorilla because I generally need a little Memphis. So it's probably Glorilla and some scotch. Yeah.
She is definitely Memphis for sure. Shout out to
She's
Memphis.
absolutely.
Shout out to Glorilla
That's
and
right.
Meg the Stallion. That's
Shut up,
Texas
Meg.
right there.
You see?
Most underrated tool in community investment.
People,
Mm,
community is the most underrated tool because while we look at numbers, people,
mm,
it's the
I
most
received
underrated.
that. One thing you wish every funder understood about affordable housing.
You probably funded something 5 years ago that got us where we are now. So if you really want to do it, then spend the money.
That's valid. Heard you. Heard you. A community land trust, co-op housing, or limited equity models. Pick one.
Community land trust.
Gotcha. And finally, what's your next bold idea, if you could share?
My next bold idea is a project in Dallas that I am pitching every which way, and it really doesn't, it's not my project necessarily, but I am all in on, I'm betting on an organization to get their project stood up. And I've had to go, I'm going a lot of different directions to get the yeses I need. And sometimes I think I'm gonna have to circumvent some no's to go to the bigger yeses. And that's what I'll do to get this done because Dallas
Hey,
needs it.
listen, you don't even got to share more if you don't want to, but all I know is that please, we need the exclusive when
For
the
sure.
ink is dry and you're
For
about to do
sure.
your shovel in the ground.
Yes.
Please let us know for the land
Yes.
break, for the breaking of the ground. We want to come out there for
Yes.
that.
Yes. Yes. When I get
And
the
the
gold
grand
shovel
opening
in my
too.
hat. Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah,
And it's a catalytic project that I believe in, and it's may not be as sexy as some of them, but it is a good from a PR, it's a good PR story. So it should happen.
let's go. Let's do it. Well, Dominique, you've dropped so many gems. Where can the people find your work and stay engaged with your mission?
Absolutely. So from my 9 to 5, you can go to TREC communityinvestors.org. You can find us there. And so if you want to build something in Dallas or Collin County, or you have a passion for Mill City in Dallas, go get some money from us for there. And then if you want to do some capital storytelling or you want to build a capital stack, then from 5 to 9, you can find me at dominiqueanderson.com.
Perfect, perfect. And we'll put your contact information below on this video link. Yeah, and you're also on LinkedIn. Shout out to LinkedIn.
Like nonstop. I know people are like, "Do you actually work?" I do. I swear I do.
That is work. LinkedIn is work.
It is work. It is a full job outside of my 9 to 5 and 5 to 9 for sure.
It's the third one. It's the
I
third one.
know, right? In addition to like a family and living in two cities, like, yeah, no, no problem.
Listen, thank you so much. I appreciate you. You have a blessed week and holiday with you and yours. Thank you for joining the channel. And yes, we're looking
Yes,
forward to the next one. Hopefully, we could do it in person at your groundbreaking and
let's
maybe
do
do
it.
some touring of some other projects you've done too.
I would love that. I would love for you to come on down to Dallas and I'll take you to some great barbecue. Yeah,
Hey, I'm with it. Thank you again. And everybody out there watching the Better Living channel, keep better living. Peace.
absolutely.